Okay, TB Nation, it's time to talk about Jeremiah Watkins, because there's a lot of untrue rumors going around about this amazing stand-up comic. Now, though Jeremiah is a modern secular comic, he's never hidden his Christian faith and overall moral lifestyle. Now, some have said that Jeremiah is only in the comedy scene to recruit audience members into Christianity, but this is actually untrue. You see, though Jeremiah was raised in a strict religious home, like any teen, he rebelled and started secretly listening to the Bare Naked Ladies. And while the name of this band alone was enough for his family to perform an honor killing, Jeremiah felt it was worth the risk. Well, by the time Jeremiah was 30 years old, he had finally mustered up the courage to admit to his parents that he was in fact an avid listener of secular music groups, like Bare Naked Ladies and even Weird Al. And after a few months, he was even able to convince his family that comedy wasn't bad as long as you always remember to say, "just kidding." And that's why Jeremiah's trademark "just kidding" is featured after every single joke he tells. So from that moment on, Jeremiah had his family's blessings to pursue comedy, so long as he always clarified to the crowd that he was just kidding. Now, while rising in the stand-up ranks, Jeremiah would regularly perform at Chucklefuck's Comedy Lounge and Hotel, a small comedy club on the outskirts of LA. And it's while performing here that the up-and-coming stand-up caught the eye of former American Idol second-place contestant Clay Aiken. And Clay connected Jeremiah with his best friend Brian Redbar, who eventually put Jeremiah on his then brand new show, Kill Tony. Now, everyone knows how Jeremiah was the band leader of Kill Tony for years and brought his overt silliness and family fun to the show. Now, eventually, Tony Hinchcliffe kicked Jeremiah off the show right before it blew up into the juggernaut we know today. But there's been much speculation as to why Jeremiah was ousted. And while Jeremiah himself claims there's no beef and that he simply didn't want to be successful, I'm the only one who's uncovered the truth. You see, while everyone could see the real-life tension that occurred between Jeremiah and Tony on stage, it's always been the assumption that Tony was bullying poor Jeremiah. But inside sources have just revealed that behind the scenes, Jeremiah was the one sowing dissent. See, apparently Jeremiah, though outnumbered, believed he could convert the show's cast to Christians and retool the show to be more about forgiving than killing. Well, after being warned many times, Jeremiah only upped the ante, forcing the show to drop him entirely. As you can imagine, this was devastating for the young comic, who then saw the show explode in popularity as soon as he left. And once Jeremiah realized the massive reach he could have had to spread the word of God, he started to see Tony as the devil himself. So Jeremiah did something unthinkable. With nowhere to turn, he signed to Magellan, who paid for an expensive surgery to remove his Christian beliefs. And the operation was able to remove 98% of Jeremiah's Christianity, leaving him completely empty inside. The perfect conditions for success in Hollywood. You see, his plan was to have his Christianity removed so that he could rise to the top of comedy, even bigger than Kill Tony, and then reapply for Christianity and start spreading the good word. But Jeremiah had no idea what it would actually feel like to have his spiritual beliefs removed. Before long, there was no plan to return to his faith. And you might have noticed a change in Jeremiah since signing with Magellan. That's right, Jeremiah is trying to be hot. You've probably seen him look noticeably different in recent years since he started squinting his eyes in an attempt to be seen as a mysterious hottie. See, now that Jeremiah wasn't a Christian, he was no different than anyone else in Hollywood, and quickly adopted the $800 weekly haircut and designer clothes lifestyle he once viewed as meaningless. And here's where it gets twisted. See, Jeremiah did sign a deal with Magellan to make him a star, but at the time, the goofy, lighthearted performer's deal was catered towards silly character acting with mandatory wigs. But this now non-Christian hot Jeremiah didn't want to be seen as silly, so he finds himself stuck in a deal that requires him to constantly humiliate himself while he rebelliously tries to be hot. And Magellan has no plans to let Jeremiah go, apparently having just signed him to reprise Jim Carrey's role as the Grinch in a 16-part Japanese TV series. And some say moving Jeremiah to Japan is punishment after a recent interview about him was released and caused major damage to his brand. As we all know, Clay Aiken's interview about Jeremiah using people's gambling debts to control them all but blew up the internet over the holidays. And Clay even alleges that when he couldn't pay up on a big payout, Jeremiah forced him to eat human feces as punishment. And there's plenty more weird things about this guy, like the 900-page autobiography he released titled My Life and Sex, where he claims to have slept with almost every famous starlet in Hollywood, or how he's invested all of his money into a kids movie he's written called All Frogs Go to Heaven. That's clearly a direct ripoff of the children's classic Lady and the Tramp, but we'll have to save that for another time. Until then, Jeremiah Watkins, you're a total bitch. Okay everyone, if you're keeping up, I'm traveling with the Congolese militia to Austin, Texas to take over Kill Tony. While crossing the Sudanese desert, we spotted Brian Redban on his paraglider catching up to us. So with these military-grade weapons, we shot him down. But upon inspecting the wreckage, I was shocked to see it wasn't Brian after all, but instead a Brian Redbot. And finally, it all made sense. The drones appearing all over America. They're all tone drones with Brian Redbots, and they're all looking for me. TB Nation, rise up. Remember to share this video with anyone you trust to fight against the Austin axis of evil.